All right, today we are jumping into one of the most powerful turning points in the entire book of Genesis, chapter 8. This isn't just about the water going down after the flood. It's a really human story about patience, about testing the world, and about finding that very first sign of hope when it seems like all is lost.
So just try to put yourself in Noah's shoes for a minute. You've been locked inside a giant boat for the better part of a year, while the entire world was erased by water. Now the rain has stopped, but all you have is silence. How in the world do you know when it's really, truly safe to step outside and start over? That's the core question here.
So, this story, it doesn't kick off with some huge, flashy miracle. Instead, it begins with a long, slow, and probably agonizing waiting game as the floodwaters finally start to go down.
And one of the most amazing things about this chapter is just how specific it is. This doesn't read like a vague myth. It's almost like a ship's log, meticulously tracking the days and months. That detail really makes you feel the immense amount of time Noah and his family were just waiting. The very first signal that things are changing is actually pretty subtle. A wind starts to blow. Now, this wasn't just any old breeze. The text presents this as the first active step in the healing process, a sign that the judgment was over and the time for restoration had begun. And you get this incredibly powerful imagery here. The two sources of the flood, the fountains of the deep below and the windows of heaven above, are literally slammed shut. It's this poetic way of saying, okay, that's it. It's definitively over. The cataclysm has ended. Okay, this timeline really puts that waiting into perspective. Just look at this. It took 150 days, that's 5 whole months, just for the water to start to go down. The ark doesn't even come to a rest on a mountaintop until the 7th month. And then it's another 3 months before they can even see the tops of other mountains. I mean, can you imagine? This was just a massive test of patience. But here's the crucial part. Noah doesn't just sit there and wait for a sign from the heavens. He gets proactive. He takes matters into his own hands. And that brings us to the really ingenious part of the story, the test he devises to see if the world is ready for life again. So Noah becomes a bit of a field biologist. He sends out 2 different birds as scouts, and they each have a totally different purpose. First up is the raven. It just kind of flies to and fro, probably surviving on whatever was floating on the water's surface. It doesn't really tell Noah anything useful. But the dove is different. The dove is the real test. And look how methodical this is, almost like a scientific experiment. The first time he sends the dove out, it comes right back. Nothing but water out there. So Noah waits an entire week. He tries again. This time, bingo, the dove comes back with something. But he's still cautious. He waits another full week, sends it out a 3rd time, and it doesn't return. He's got his answer. This verse right here, this is the climax of the whole waiting game. The key detail is that the olive leaf was freshly plucked off. Now think about that. It means that not only was there an olive tree above the water, but that tree was alive, it was healthy, and it was already budding with new life. This was the undeniable physical proof Noah needed. And that single olive leaf, of course, becomes so much more. It's maybe one of the most famous symbols in the world, right? It stands for peace, for a fresh start, and for the idea that life can endure through even the most absolute devastation. It was the first sign that the world wasn't just dry, it was truly alive again. So Noah has his proof. And that brings us to the final act of this story. The doors of the ark are finally about to open, and life is going to step out onto a brand new earth. And once again, the text is so specific. It's on the very first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year that he finally rolls back the cover of the ark and sees the dry ground. You know, it's literally the dawn of a new year and the dawn of a whole new era for humanity. But even then, can you believe it? He still waits. He's seen the dry land with his own eyes, but he doesn't make a move until he gets the official command from God. And when that command comes, it sounds really familiar. It's basically a reboot of the original mission given in Genesis 1, to be fruitful and fill the earth. And then comes the great exit. And I love how the story is so careful to list everyone who comes out. It's not just about the people. It's every beast, every bird, every single creeping thing, the whole shebang. This is a complete and total reset for the planet's entire ecosystem. So think about this.
What's the very first thing you do after you survive a world-ending event and step onto solid ground for the first time in a year? Do you build a shelter? Forage for food? Nope. The very first thing Noah does is build an altar. His first priority, before anything else, is to express gratitude.
And that single act of thankfulness leads directly to the conclusion of our story, a divine response that's going to set the rules for the future of the entire world.
This is such a stunning moment. In response to Noah's offering, God makes a promise. But the text says he makes it in his heart. It's this quiet, internal, unilateral decision. God basically acknowledges that human nature is still going to be flawed, but resolves that this kind of total destruction will never happen again.
And this promise gets spelled out in the most fundamental way imaginable. It's a guarantee of stability. God ensures that the basic cycles that make life on Earth possible, farming, the seasons, the weather, even just day and night, that all of these things will continue, uninterrupted, for as long as the Earth remains. It's a covenant of predictability. So that's where we end up. A story that takes us from total chaos to a promise of unwavering stability. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? In a world that often feels just as chaotic, what does it mean to hold on to this ancient promise of order, of renewal, and of the simple, enduring cycle of the seasons?